Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the TUSD Governing Board to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Ravi?
Here.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Here.
Ms. Shaw? Mr. Romero?
Here.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Here. Next, we'll move on to the land acknowledgement statement, and that is going to be given to us by Emily Calderon. She's a 5th grade student at Erickson Elementary School. Emily is an amazing student and a joy to have at Erickson Elementary. Her love for the violin, music, and spending time with friends makes Emily truly special. Today is Emily's birthday. Happy birthday, Emily. And we wish her a wonderful day filled with laughter, fun, and appreciate her time spent assisting us with reading the land acknowledgement statement. So happy birthday, Emily, and whenever you're ready, you can start the land acknowledgement statement.
Thank you. On behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Emily Calderon, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland, the Tohono O'odham Nation, and the federally recognized tribal land of the Musqueam Yankee tribe.
Thank you. Next is our Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be given to us by Magnus Manson. He's a 4th grade student at Hudlow Elementary School. Magnus is a 10-year-old 4th grader at Hudlow Elementary. In his first year at Hudlow, he has connected with many new friends and teachers and is always looking forward to each school day. In his free time, he loves to make digital art and animations that reflect his interests. He also enjoys playing video games, especially ones that allow him to build his own world and interact with other players. He regularly writes scripts for the worlds he builds, often memorizing them and giving voices to the characters he creates. In the last year, he's also found his singing voice and loves to sing along to his favorite songs on repeat. He is working on building up the courage to sing in front of other people, but he believes he'll get there soon. Magnus hopes all of his passions will lead him to become an animator or writer, which will allow him to inspire others with his stories. That's really great, Magnus. Whenever you're ready, you can do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next is agenda adjustments. Dr. Trujillo.
President Ekstrom, members of the board, we have no recommended agenda adjustments this evening.
Thank you. Next is the superintendent's report. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Ekstrom, members of the governing board, we begin tonight's governing board meeting with just a hint of sadness as we say goodbye to 2 valuable members of the TUSD community. Tonight, we begin with a moment of remembrance. The Anna Henry Elementary School community honors and mourns the life and legacy of their beloved school counselor, Miss Cynthia Eman. She passed away peacefully on May 22nd, 2025, the final day of the school year. Ms. Eman dedicated her career to serving students and families and staff across TUSD. Her previous roles included serving as a counselor at McGee Middle School and a classroom teacher at Shoemaker Elementary. Over the years, she touched countless lives with her compassion, professionalism, and unwavering support. Students fondly remember her as a true friend, someone who always listened, lifted their spirits, brought joy and humor into their day. Families describe her as a deeply supportive, kind, and instrumental in helping their children thrive. Her colleagues at Henry are especially grateful for her commitment to the school's mission and the well-being of every student. Ms. Eman's strength, kindness, and laughter will be profoundly missed. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank her for making our schools and our lives better. I see our principal, Thomas Heminger, is here this evening. I'd like to invite him up to share just a few words about what this incredible staff member meant to the Henry community. Mr. Heminger?
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo and the governing board. On behalf of our Anna Henry community, Miss Eamon, she was a true educator. She has a very kind heart. She was incredible with our students, very generous, always time to meet with children and discuss whatever was on their minds. She was amazing with our families, just incredibly supportive of our school community, and she will be deeply missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heminger. We also pause to honor another beloved member of our TUSD family, a legend of Badger Nation, Coach Oscar Romero, longtime educator and coach at Tucson High School. He passed away recently at the age of 65 after a courageous battle with liver cancer. He was a proud alumni of Tucson High, Badger through and through. Coach Romero, known affectionately as Coach O, spent more than 3 decades serving students as both a teacher and a coach. From 1990 to 2018, he led the Badgers baseball program to 488 wins and 3 state title game appearances, as well as numerous trips to the playoffs. After retiring from Tucson High in 2018, he continued mentoring student athletes at the college level, most recently at Pima Community College. Coach Romero leaves behind a legacy of excellence, mentorship, and devotion. His passion for teaching and learning and coaching and shaping young lives will never be forgotten and will leave a lasting imprint and legacy in Badger Nation. We extend our deepest condolences to the Romero and the Iman families, and we thank them both for sharing their extraordinary loved ones with the TUSD community. I can share with you that one of my most memorable experience here in Tucson Unified, and one of my earliest as a freshly minted superintendent in 2017, was that spring throwing out a first pitch in one of the home games in Coach Romero's final season. And I'll always remember shaking hands with him out there on the diamond, him giving me a big hug and talking to me about his beloved Badger baseball team and everything that they accomplished together. So he will be sorely missed. He's definitely an icon in the community. So please help all of us, let us honor both of these wonderful family members and TUSD educators through a moment of silence now. Thank you. Thank you. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend with several of our team members the Arizona Attendance Conference. I'm glad to see that there is momentum building with some of the state's largest districts, elementary, high school, and unified, in tackling the issue of truancy and absenteeism in classrooms across the state. It was an insightful summit. We got to learn a lot from different districts in terms of what they're doing to tackle the issues of absenteeism and truancy across grade levels. So we're looking forward to implementing some of the strategies here in our own district as we wage a very, very important campaign to make sure that every single child and young person comes to school each and every single day. This event emphasized collaborative and data-driven strategies to improve overall student attendance, reduce chronic absenteeism, to establish critical areas of focus with regard to truancy and absenteeism, and to build effective strategies around those focus areas. So we're certainly looking forward to building some of those structures in our efforts here to make sure everybody's in school every single day. Last week, I had an opportunity to meet 3 wonderful principals and experience the vitality of 3 amazing school communities. Starting with Valencia Middle School, I want to thank Omar Sotelo and his team for hosting me. Had a wonderful visit out there, in and out of some of the art classrooms. Had a wonderful, very, very insightful focus group with some very passionate Valencia employees who talked very candidly about some of the celebrations and some of the challenges out there at Valencia Middle School. So I want to thank those staff members for taking the time out of their day to talk to me, and want to wish Principal Sotelo all the best. They're off to an absolutely great start out there at Valencia. I had an opportunity to visit Badger Nation. I want to thank Principal John Lanza for hosting me out there at Tucson High. And I also want to thank Mariachi Arrayos for the impromptu performance. Justin Enriquez, we had no intentions of interrupting the class. They actually were engaged in a practice, but true to form, once they saw us walk in, they broke out into song, and we had an amazing performance from Mariachi Arrayos out there at Tucson High. I also want to thank Julian Martinez, who's the new theater arts teacher, who is establishing his presence there in the theater arts program, stepping in for longtime theater arts director, Mr. Art. Very impressed with the classes. I also want to thank all of our CTE programs that we visited there that day, and Mr. Lanza for a wonderful visit. And lastly, rounded out the week with a visit to Mansfeld Middle School, checking in on our brand new principal, Carla Martinez, who's off to a very, very good start there. Very, very impressed with all of our wonderful teachers that I was able to visit. But most of all, just very, very impressed with our student focus group that engaged me in some very, very timely topics and really spoke to me very frankly about the prevalence of vape and vaping materials and tobacco in the community and the problems that it presents in school. So it's been a while since I've had middle school students that articulate and that frank in terms of an issue. So I want to thank them for participating in that conversation. In all three schools, I will have the governing board note, I was very impressed with the absence of cell phones everywhere. It is really having an impact. That state law that Governor Hobbs signed at Pueblo High School, I did not see a cell phone out. We visited several classrooms. I was very, very impressed about how our students are really embracing the new cell phone free expectations in instructional spaces. So thought I'd pass that along to our board. This Friday, September 12th, marks Avid Day, and our Tucson Unified School District Avid Schools will join the nationwide celebration of Avid's programmatic impact on college and career readiness. Avid Day recognizes both the educators who help close opportunity gaps and the students who rise to the challenge. Tucson Unified has seen strong outcomes thanks to the dedication of our Avid community. Over the past 5 years, TUSD Avid students have graduated at rates averaging 15% higher than the district average. In the last academic year, FAFSA completion, that's the free application for student aid, by Tucson Unified Avid seniors was 50% higher than the Arizona state average. Avid enrollment continues to reflect the full diversity of our student body, advancing Avid's mission to ensure that every student is prepared for success. We look forward to celebrating these achievements across our schools this week and sharing some highlights at next week's meeting. And now, as I conclude the report, the best part of tonight's report, we get to take a look at one of the most amazing career and technical education programs that we offer in our high schools, the Automotive Technology Program from Saguaro High School. We're excited to spotlight student achievement through the lens of CTE. And this evening, students from Saguaro's Automotive Technology Program will present their work. Presentation will include an interactive component and participation by the governing board, offering a hands-on look at the skills and real-world applications our students are mastering. We're proud to have our principal, Mr. Roberto, or as he is affectionately known, Bobby Estrella, here. I'd like to invite Mr. Estrella to come on up and talk a little bit about what the Automotive Technology Program means for the students at Saguaro High School and the absolutely amazing work and leadership of its lead instructor. Mr. Estrella?
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us to be here today. We're very excited to share our students with you today and what they're learning. Obviously, CTE and any kind of job technician field to get people ready for the job force is important. You're going to see tonight some of our best on our campus. They're very bright. They're really bright and very highly motivated what they do. They absolutely love this program, and they're being led by a teacher that really prepares them for the field. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Brooks.
Well, good evening. My name is William Brooks. I'm the automotive technology instructor at Saguaro High School. I just want to say thank you to Dr. Trio for inviting us here this afternoon, evening. We're really excited to show you guys what we're going to demonstrate for you for the board. Let me get my clicker out here. I do notice that Ms. Shaw is not here, so often in life you don't get the opportunity to put your boss on the spot. So I'm going to ask Mr. Estrella to step in as Ms. Shaw. You'll see her name on the other side. So the Automotive Technology Program is a 3-year program where students learn about science and practical applications of automotive principles. Students can leverage this knowledge to earn industry certifications like ASC certifications in up to 10 different specialties. Those certifications and learned skills can lead to professional outcomes with jobs or internships in automotive and related industries like transportation and aviation. In the automotive industry alone, there are roughly 1,600 job openings in Arizona every year. So specifically at Saguaro, we've been really working on student outcomes, retention, and we've seen almost a 400% increase in program retention over the past few years, which has led us to a lot of new measurable student success achievements. In 2024-25 alone, we had our students outperform the state average in 8 out of 9 categories in state testing. Last year, we had a 100% graduation rate of our seniors in the program. So not one single senior who finished the automotive program didn't receive a high school diploma. 45% of those seniors left in a related job the day they graduated or in an educational program that was in an automotive-related field. And then 100% of our students at all levels who completed at least 1 year in our program left with a professional certification of some kind that prepared them for work. So today we're going to demonstrate one of the core principles of modern vehicles, which is 12-volt circuit building. We're going to have our students present to the board, Dr. Trio and now Mr. Estrella. So we've got Maddie Bastine, a senior. We've got Theo Boyd, a junior, who's also the president of our automotive CTSO. Guy Breeden, a junior. Paige O'Brien, a senior. Clark White, a sophomore. And Braden Nye Erickson, a junior. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause. So we're going to go ahead and turn this over to Clark, and the students will guide you through this a little bit.
Hello. Thank you for asking us to present to you. Today, we will demonstrate how to build and measure simple 12-volt circuits that replicate many of the onboard functions found in modern automobiles. These circuits are fundamental to every vehicle on the road in the United States, from traditional gas and diesel models to hybrids and the most advanced electric cars.
Can the members of the board and Dr. Trujillo join us, please?
Safety is always the most important aspect of what we do. So we have a few important rules. Make sure your safety glasses are on to protect your eyes. When we are manipulating the circuit pathways, ensure the power source is switched off, and be sure that there are no loose or incorrectly placed wires when the circuit is energized.
12-volt circuits control all the accessories of your vehicle, including door locks, your car stereo, and like in today's example, lighting.
Components of a 12-volt circuit consist of wires, connectors, relays, switches, power sources, and bulbs.
Now the board members and Dr. Trujillo will assemble the circuit and illuminate the bulbs.
And there is one more part to this. So the board member or Dr. Trujillo, whoever gets it done first, Mr. Estrella, you're eliminated, sorry. You'll receive a Saguaro t-shirt and you'll be an honorary Cougar for at least the day. So what the students are doing is they're demonstrating how to build a 12-volt circuit to illuminate a light, such as would be in your car when you open the door or your map light. They're completely disassembled, so they're assembling the wires, and then they're also going to check for voltage. What they don't know is I have made all of them have a surprise. Looks like Mr. Romero is in the lead currently. The beeping that you're hearing is they're checking for continuity. So they're checking to make sure there's a pathway for electricity in certain areas of the circuit because we don't have a light bulb yet. So we're trying to figure out what's failed. Oh, Miss Ekstrom with the first light. Congratulations. And Mr. Romero with the second light. And Miss Rose.
Thank you.
We've got Dr. Shaw followed by Dr. Trio. Good job. Thank you, everybody. Let's go ahead and give them a hand.
Great.
Aw.
Should I put this on and make a reminder all night that you guys love it?
Go for it. Go for it. Shove it in our face.
Yay, and it's like CTE, like little gear and car. Excuse me. I'm coughing into the mic. Okay.
President Ekstrom, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
Ms. Ekstrom, I just want
Yes.
to point out, you came in first, I came in second. Ha ha. I am. I am. Mainly because I didn't come in first. I'm competitive.
Yes, very competitive. Next is call to the audience. I'll turn that over to Dr. Shaw.
Members of the public may speak during the call to the audience. The governing board clerk shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining order where it may be appropriate. Those who speak in person or want to have their comments read shall email or call the board office or complete a request to address the board form before the meeting. Speakers who have not completed a request form are not permitted to address the board. The speaker must state their full name and topic prior to addressing the board. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time of 3 minutes. While more than one speaker may speak together in the time allowed, speakers are reminded that they are not allowed to speak more than once, and they may not transfer or delegate their time to others. If there are documents for the board, please give them to the board office staff, and they will ensure each board member receives a copy. Those attending the meeting and or speaking before the board shall observe rules of good conduct. Speakers shall also refrain from inappropriate or slanderous remarks. And because TUSD serves students from preschool through high school, speakers should be aware there may be children present and listening. At the end of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if any board member wishes to respond to criticism, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Contents of this card are public information. We have 2 calls to the audience in person and 2 to be read. We'll start with Rebecca Salome and then KW Lau.
Hi. I'm Rebecca Salome, and I'm a substitute teacher in TUSD. Good evening to the members of the board, to Dr. Trujillo, and to Counselor Ross, and all of us here who care about the quality of education in our community. I've been substitute teaching for nearly 7 years, and it's been a thrill and a challenge and worth it. And I've been looking closely at the elements of the override proposition on the upcoming November ballot. Like many others, I am well pleased with the direction it's going in, but tonight I want to focus on the proposed pay raise, especially as it affects the district substitute teachers. We are operating under the assumption that we will be included in the pay increase portion. I want to bring a couple of quick points to your attention. First, as ADE certified substitutes, we are employed to temporarily replace an absent teacher in the classroom. And since we are employed directly by TUSD, we do fall directly into that category called all other employment groups that is stated in the proposal. And second, it's important for the board members to realize that in 82 of the TUSD schools, substitutes have not gotten a pay raise since 2021. We know and we're certain that the board agrees that the district wouldn't be as excellent as it is without substitutes. And there are over 800 of us who are certified and committed to the vital work of educating our young people. And we're working hard to get voter support for November. If this proposition gets passed, it's going to be a great victory for TUSD, which has not been granted an override in, I think, more than 2 decades. And our purpose here tonight is to remind you that it is both just and visionary for the board to guarantee our inclusion in the district-wide employee pay raise. So thank you for listening to your dedicated substitute teachers.
Next, we have KW Lau.
Good evening, board members. My name is KW Lau, and I am here to speak on behalf of the substitutes at TEA. I have been a substitute. This is my 3rd year going into it. I have worked in both full-time capacities and in part-time capacities, and I am also a team of the bargaining constituency with the with TEA. And during our negotiations, we have run into a couple of hiccups with the admin team, and I am here to ask some questions or to convince you to apply some pressure. Their delays have created such structures in which we as substitutes can be dissuaded from the fight, as we have rarely or don't hear too much responses when we have asked them questions, have asked them for timeliness in terms of setting up appointments, setting up meetings. And when we do have meetings, it is oftentimes within a 30 or 90-minute time frame. As a group who is starting a completely new contract, to only be given 90 minutes every month, and with that, with very little response and movement in setting those meetings, one, it feels a little disrespectful to our trade as substitute teachers who fill up quite a lot of time. There's over 800 of us, as Rebecca has stated, and our presence, I believe, is important for the quality of students, for the quality of teachers' livelihoods, and also for ourselves. Some of the things that we would ask the district to commit on is if the district would be able to commit to a schedule in meeting us, in giving us our due time, in sharing our grievances, in working collaboratively to have processes that would both make the functioning of substitutes better for the school district and ourselves. The second thing I have to ask of y'all is, if there are certain barriers that make it hard for the admin team to meet with us, and if so, what those barriers are for us to be aware and how to work with them. Our last thing that I would like to talk about is here are the certain issues that we have been discussing that have been long overdue and having a solution for. Some of the things that we are wanting to talk about and resolve within our bargaining with the admin is things like due process, issues about our pay raises, as we haven't gotten one in the last 5 years, as other groups have. And the last thing that I would like to talk quickly about is that there is lack of clarity on how we can receive benefits such as healthcare and retirement. These things are important to keep the retention of substitutes, both long-term and short-term. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone in person for speaking. We're going to turn to our comments to be read. The first one is from Tara Radliff. To be read, data sharing item 5.5. Clerk of the board and board members, I urge each and one of you to vote no on consent item 5.5. With the proposed modifications to the PCHD IGA, you will be effectively taking away parental notification and consent for the health-based issued of school children. Please leave parenting to the parents and education to the school district. Have you properly notified all affected parents and guardians of this attempt to take away their notification and consent rights? If you had, you will see an outpouring of outrage. Again, please vote no on consent item 5.5. Thank you, Tara Radliff. And next we have Henry Schneiker to be read, consent item 5.5. TUSD board members, vote no on consent item 5.5, Pima County Department of Health Intergovernmental Agreement Amendment. The issue here is that only an arbitrary declaration protects the privacy of the student's information. We only have to look at recent history to see the arbitrary, capricious, and politically motivated nature of declarations. 34 CFR 99.36 is so filled with weasel words and phrases as to only offer the slimmest protection, easily sidestepped with a declaration. Declarations are typically made under the pretense of an emergency following a quick fear campaign. Terrorized people are easier to fool and manipulate. Thanks, Henry Schneiker, parent. And Madam President, that concludes the call to the audience.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Would any member of the governing board like to address any comments made during call to the audience? Great, we'll move on. Next is consent agenda. Items 5.2 through 5.9, Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, President Ekstrom, governing board members, the administration recommends that the board approve consent agenda items as arranged, 5.2 to 5.9.
Mr. Romero.
Yeah, I'd like to have discussion on 5.4 and 5.5 before we vote on those. Please.
Okay, so then do I hear a motion to approve 5.2, 5.3, 5.6, 7, 8, and 9?
So moved.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item 5.4 is the approval of the intergovernmental agreement between TUSD and the City of Tucson for TUSD to be a subrecipient of the City of Tucson Composting and Food Waste Reduction Project. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, for item 5.4, I would like to welcome up our Director for Food Services, Lindsay Aguilar, to address any questions related to the IGA. And then on deck, we have Dr. Gaw, who will be able to address any questions or details on the IGA with the Pima County Health Department. Ms. Aguilar.
Good evening. Questions?
Mr. Romero.
Yes, so a couple things. On the first chart that we talked about, on the agenda 5.4, talks about year one contractual in-kind total. And then looking at the subrecipient agreement, and it talks about some of the different numbers in here. But first of all, what is in-kind reference to here under both year 1 and 2?
Yeah, so that in kind for this grant, it's USDA grant through the City of Tucson. So we already have a project specialist that is hired on through TUSD Food Services that's currently doing this work in our schools. So that in-kind contribution is that $12,000 is part of the salary that we're already covered out of the food service budget. That is a requirement for the grant, that there's an in-kind contribution. So we're using the funds that we're already expending under normal circumstances that supports this grant work.
Okay, so then under the contractual and fringe benefits, so this is a new position then, is that correct?
Right, so this is supporting additional FTE for that work. And so we're actually going to be receiving that funds through this grant as a subrecipient.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out, other than some type of, I guess understanding why we have this, even going back into subrecipients. So the City of Tucson looks like they're getting a grant awarded of the amount of $368,353 under this grant. And in that, the subrecipient, which is us, we get the amount not to exceed $66,198.60. So what is the city doing with this extra $302,000-ish of this money, and we're just getting a small portion of this? And I don't know, it looks like we're doing a lot of this work over here. We're only paying for 1 FTE for a small project?
Yeah, so the City of Tucson, this grant includes a much larger composting and food waste reduction work throughout the city. The components of the grant that are listed in this IGA are specific to what activities we're doing at TUSD that aligns with our climate action policy and expanding our composting and food waste reduction efforts. This is a larger, broader, city-wide approach to composting and food waste, which is why they're receiving such a large amount of money. This segment is just the specifics to TUSD and our partnership specific to our schools.
So what are other school districts being planned on participating in this? Other businesses? Who else is involved in this $300 and some thousand dollars?
Sure. I have our project specialist, Susan Silverman, who is coordinating this grant currently that we have, and then this extended grant with the City of Tucson, so she can give a bit more insight into the details of what the city's doing.
Hello.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all. So the City of Tucson is sponsoring this grant project for composting and food waste reduction. The last grant that we had that we're just finishing out was sponsored by TUSD. We were the sponsor of the grant. Now that grant, we were not able to renew it. It's a one-time grant, but we're still able to partner with the city. So it will be a new initiative involving schools that are not currently composting, just to pick up their food waste from the City of Tucson that'll send trucks around to the designated schools to pay for that. So that's our portion of the project. The other partner in the project is Ishkashita Refugee Network, working with refugees around the community to help reduce food waste from the food that they're collecting. So it'll be Ishkashita, TUSD, and the City of Tucson expanding their composting and food waste reduction initiatives at Los Reales landfill. Will be the site that our food waste is going to be going to, and then in return we'll receive compost and mulch from the city, which they've already started to do, which has been a really wonderful partnership with the City of Tucson. We're very thankful for their involvement in the project and for their taking it up so that they could write another grant and help us continue the project.
So of the compost and mulch that we initially help to produce, then are these coming back to all our individual schools for their individual gardens and things of that nature?
Exactly.
And who else benefits from this compost and mulch in this program?
The Community Gardens of Tucson is a citywide group that partners with the city, and all the other nonprofits and groups that work with the city to receive that compost. I know that they delivered to the city council offices, so community members are able to go and pick up finished compost there for their garden needs. And often our schools will benefit from that as well.
Okay, and it looks like this is a 2-year commitment, and you had mentioned before we had an old grant where we were doing that. Was that kind of where our in-kind person came on in, or was that something different?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay.
The in-kind portion came from my salary, actually, and that is the vision for moving forward. And it's 0.25% of my salary right now.
Okay, so as far as any money coming out of TUSD to participate in this, because I know looking at it, our amount was $66,198, which is, the contractual number right over there, then are we just, from TUSD then coming out taking care of the $12,730 towards your position then? Is that
Yes.
what I'm understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
And
and
the 66,000 pays for a compost project specialist we've got someone in place right now, and he's going to be able to continue for the next 2 years in that role, supporting all of our composting at the schools.
And then just kind of reading through all the different things, all the different regulations, reporting, performance evaluation, monitoring, cooperation, et cetera, audits, results, independent audits. There's a lot of things that go along with this. Will whoever we have to fill that position be able to do all of your requirements that are required in here with their normal positions, or is this also something food services is going to be kind of overseeing to make sure these things are done within our food services department?
Food services will be overseeing it, and the person in that position right now is currently assisting with all of the required reporting and audits and everything else.
Okay. And then as far as, because it is 2 years, if we find out it's not working, I don't remember seeing this, what are our options if we needed to get out of this agreement or this grant? Do we know?
I would offhand, I don't specifically know, I'd have to confirm through the agreement, but typically there is an opt-out or some type of notification that we could utilize. That would have to be approved by the USDA grant, because this was submitted as a federal grant application, where the city of Tucson identified all the different partners that are going to be subrecipients of this grant. But typically in those grants, there is some type of disclosure if there were to be something. The idea, though, is this additional funding is going to allow us to continue our efforts in increasing the composting initiatives that we have going on across the district.
So is that, oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
that's okay. The $66,000, like Susan stated, is going to help continue to pay for the positions that we currently have doing this work.
So then does it look as though that we want to continue this in the future, or after that grant goes, it's something we try to carry on and continue to hold this torch if the grant doesn't come back on through? What's our long-term vision or goals or ideas on this, other than our short-term of getting compost for our gardens and for our school facilities?
So the long-term goal is to utilize this grant with the city of Tucson to help build that infrastructure within the city, to allow us for them to pick up the food waste to then turn it into compost, because that's something that is a real challenge with trying to collect food waste throughout the community that can then be turned into something to benefit gardens and other environmental efforts. So that is the long-term goal, is that this will help create that infrastructure throughout the city of Tucson and, of course, within TUSD.
And I know it's kind of hard to answer this question, but I'll ask, just, I'm sure there's been meetings of, like I said, this other $302,000. I know you mentioned one organization that's also going to be helping out, and then some city things. Are those just the three programs that are utilizing this 301 or 368,000? Just those three organizations?
I know there's quite a bit more partnerships that the city of Tucson does have that are connected to this work of trying to build that infrastructure with the food waste collection and working with the Los Reales landfill as well.
Okay, and I guess just as far as to make sure that it's beneficial to the school, how is that going to get back to the board to let us know how this grant is working after our first year?
So we do quarterly reports, and so we do post that information on our food service social media for our composting project, and that is something that we also provide to the grant requirements. So we, for example, weigh the food waste that's being collected across TUSD and all of the contributions that that's making to reduce food waste. So it is something that is built into the tracking and data, and the grant also has that built in to different partners that help analyze that data so that we can report the greater impact in our community from doing this.
Okay, and so then currently are we doing then through food services the work that you're doing here before we came into this grant? So do we have record of what your department has done?
Yes.
Because again, for me, this is a new part that I was not aware that we had a in-kind, aspect of this. So I just want to make sure I understand all the intricacies of this.
Yes, we
Okay.
definitely have that data.
Okay.
And happy to share.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
First, I want to say good evening, and sorry I'm late. My daughter had a volleyball game at McGee. I want to thank Mr. Romero for his line of questioning. It's great to hear more about this agenda item. And I've seen the big pile of mulch at my local park at Doris J. Thompson Park. I know there's one at the Ward 3 office as well. I haven't had the opportunity to take a bucket yet and grow a garden, but I'm very hopeful that I will one day. With that, do you know how much pounds of compost that we generate here from TUSD schools?
I don't know that offhand, but I can get that for you. We do track that.
It's a significant amount, I assume.
Yes, and it's been this grant, our current composting grant, we're in our second year of it, so it's been something that we've been tracking for the last 2 years.
Okay, great. And that is, sorry, I don't have board docs pulled up yet, but that's at how many schools in TUSD?
This last year, we worked directly with 25 of our schools that have school gardens with composting and vermicomposting. And I forget the exact amount, but it's around 60,000 pounds of food waste that we've composted. I do want to just interject that currently in the U.S., we discard approximately 40% of our food waste for food that's produced.
Right.
So even any impact that we can make on that is significant in terms of addressing climate change and anything we can do. So this really fits into our climate action plan for TUSD, and we appreciate the board's initiative in supporting that and feel that this fits right into that.
Absolutely. Is there capacity to have this at every one of our schools?
That would be the ultimate goal that we're building towards, yes.
Great. Is there like a dollar amount associated with that you can just like ballpark?
I don't have that, but I can tell you with the work that we're doing with the climate action policy and the company that we're working with, that is part of it. We'll have some more realistic figures in terms of what that would entail and the staffing support for that.
All right, thank you.
I would just like to say I love seeing the kids compost when I go to different schools, so I appreciate your work in this, and I will move the item.
I'll second.
The item has been moved by myself and seconded by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 5.5 is the approval to amend the current IGA between TUSD and Pima County Health Department and establish a data sharing agreement. Dr. Trujillo?
Introduce our Director for Health Services, Dr. Joseph Gaw, who will be available to answer any questions from our board.
Any questions for Dr. Gaw? Mr. Romero?
Hi, yeah, thank you. So just kind of going over the intergovernmental agreement amendment. One of the things, I guess, that just sticks out to me, which I again, hopefully you can help explain, it says 2.5 on the second page, allowances of personal information sharing secondary to health or safety emergency without parental consent. And it kind of goes into some issues. One of the things mentioned was actually brought up at the call to the audience. But what, anything that says without parental consent brings concern not just to me, but I know a lot of people within our community. Can you explain that 2.5 to me, please?
Sure, absolutely. So when we have a outbreak, as it is determined through the Pima County Health Department, at that particular point, we need to track and trace that process of exposure and disease. So in the past, and we've learned this from the COVID experience, is that the lack of ability to share information, particularly called a line list, is what is called in our district, is the students who are exposed, and then we basically share the contact data so that the county may ensure the safety of the students and that they get a physician follow-up. So we're sharing data specific to the outbreak per the law. We're not, any other data that is shared is purely in in identified information, so it's in large number aggregate, basically. So, but in this particular case, it would be, example, if we have a student who has confirmed measles in a school, we have to act quickly to find all those particular students who are, and staff who is not vaccinated accordingly, get them out of the school, and then we have to track all exposures as well. So that's the intent of that that ruling in there.
So I guess I didn't hear under that, though, without parental consent.
Yes.
Why is this done without parental consent?
So when you're dealing with an outbreak, we have time that is not on our side. So what this particular step would allow us to do is to share the actual line list without having to contact every single parent on that particular line list. And then basically the county can follow up with each of those individuals from my apologies, my stutter has been really bad today, so.
You're good.
From a public health perspective for that, because they do have tools and support services that we do not. So basically it's telling the county, this is so the students who have been confirmed as exposed, and they follow up with them.
Okay, so I guess just even with that, explanation, just this wording in here to even have anything that mentions that we take it out of TUSD's hands and just gives it over to a government, a county government without parental knowledge of these types of things is very concerning to me that we would even consider doing something like that to our parents and people that are in charge of our students. I know for me personally, well, as you can hear, I'm talking about it right now, it would throw up a red flag on that. Is Pima County Health requesting this from all the school districts? Do you know?
So all I can speak for is our district. So, but I can tell you with the current staffing model that school health has, with the current full-time equivalent that we have in school nurses, the contact tracing requirements, the follow-up, so one would need, if there's an outbreak to that, really puts a big strain on the staffing to do all that work if we can't share that data. So the alternative is we can continue to support that, but we need more personnel who are licensed in schools. Right now, we have a very limited amount of staffing who are licensed personnel that float between multiple schools. So they may not even be at that school where the outbreak is occurring. So we not only, so is this intended to increase data sharing to get content experts who are capable of guiding us in that particular event, but it's also to help reduce burden on that too, because during COVID, we were tracking contact constantly, but we did have support staff to help us in that process as well. And since those funds have gone, there is no, so we're pre-pandemic at this point, so.
So it looks like this actually just might be an overview for if another situation similar to a COVID situation happens where we don't have the staff to take care of those things. Wouldn't it be a better option to have something as opposed to giving it to Pima County if we don't have the proper staff to be able to have something within, our budget somewhere, I'm sure there's something that Ricky can find. If we need to outsource something to help us with these versus handing over the keys to Pima County whenever they feel that something comes up, and now we basically give them the rights of our parents to do that. I think it would be more advantageous to earn the trust of our parents to say if a situation happens again, we will at that point outsource to get the amount of people we need to help us within the district and not bypass, their consent. I didn't know if that's another option that we've looked at or not, or if this is because it's all been proposed and it's not been, looked at in a different way.
So it's important to know that we're not giving the keys over to anybody. What we're doing here is we're giving information to an approved public health government agency that supports our county. So what that means is I don't diagnose. My nursing staff does not diagnose. A healthcare provider who is licensed to diagnose is the ones who make those decisions. What was happening in the past is we need support from content experts that are provider-based that can help guide the next step to these particular things. All this is saying is we're going to share aggregate data so that we can build better programs to support our students and the Tucson community at large, which a school district is the biggest public health entity available to us, all right? Number two, all this provides is when there is a designated outbreak as per the rule here, it's a public health issue, all right? Then we share the line list that of the individuals who are impacted so that we can connect them with the services and help that is needed for public safety and to stop the outbreak. That's all this is saying.
Yeah, and I appreciate that great explanation, so I do appreciate that. I think the only thing, again, still my reservation is possibly the language. The way that you've explained it makes a lot more sense than as what somebody else might take it in the language over here. So, Dr. Gall, thank you very much for your explanation. Sure. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Dr. Shaw?
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Ms. Shaw?
Dr. Gaw, this reminds me of, of course, the COVID times and the issue that we had when there were outbreaks at our schools, and the Pima County Health Department was slow to react to the data that we provided them and did not call it an outbreak, and we weren't able to close down schools. Does this IGA give all the power to the health department to do that?
So we are giving the power to the content experts that are able to make that determination.
But certain school sites who know, like, we have 40% of staff out, we have a huge amount of students out, and we have to wait a week or two for the county health department to react. This is my concern.
So I understand that concern, but my health services department does not have the ability to make those determinations, and we can't speak for the capabilities of the county, right? So all we can do is build a system where we can get the maximum partnership as we possibly can. And this potentially could open up other doors to maybe developing a deeper partnership in a way where perhaps we get resources that are created specifically for our school district. Don't know how that would look, but that opens a door to that. But you can't go after larger grants of that sort or some alternative funding sources if we can't share data in that capacity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with sharing the non-identifiable data and in many ways also the identifying data if needed. I'm just concerned that when you have information between different jurisdictions and there's an emergency happening, that
Sure.
it creates a vacuum where we can't react as quickly as we need to.
So I can perhaps offer you a change that has happened. So since the pandemic, we have restructured health services where we have a cabinet of expert nurse leaders now who meet very regularly, and one of them is a disease nurse who works directly between us and the county. So we're talking all the time now. In the past, that wasn't always the case, but our partnership and our relationship and needs have really grown together. So I think it's probably a more positive experience today than it has many years ago.
Right. Okay. And then I noticed, well, on number 2.5, it says PCHD will make the determination of outbreak under this provision.
Yes.
But there's no definition of what an outbreak is. Is that because it's case by case basis?
Yes, because it's not only case by case, but it's also like it's varied from one condition to another, right? So one disease would have an outbreak score of a certain number or involvement or a certain stated percentage by the actual disease factor. Others do not. So it's completely case by case basis, really.
Okay, thank you. And then Mr. Ross or Dr. Trujillo, we still have that matrix that we created, right, for certain health emergencies. Can you speak to that real quick?
That has not changed since the board took governing board action on that matrix.
All right, so, okay. And then, Mr. Ross, can you speak to 34 CFR 99.36? That's a federal, like FERPA?
Yes, governing board members, that is FERPA, and that provision in that IGA amendment is merely a recognition of the law, which says that if there is, that's one of the conditions of disclosing education information without parental consent is health and safety emergency, and that's the citation there. So that provision is recognizing that despite the fact that the amendment is talking about de-identified and that in aggregate information, there's still FERPA that says that if there is a health and safety emergency, then identifiable student information can be shared under federal law.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Dr. Gah, I just have a comment. Would you, or a question and a comment, would you say that the Pima County Health Department has learned quite a bit from COVID and their contact tracing? So if another outbreak were to happen of that magnitude, they have all of the tools in their boxes to not start over, but to go ahead and move forward, not in the way that they did before, because they have learned from what they did in the past?
So, number one, I can't speak for the county, but I can, the world of public health, I think, has learned a lot in the pandemic. And you have to understand, too, that, that there was a lot of variables that played into that pandemic, right? And so one thing that did speak very well is that the county, if I do recall correctly, they were nationally recognized as being a model for in certain levels of how they did respond to that pandemic, right? So the county will have the same challenges, right, as we all do, right? But I can tell you through our partnerships since the pandemic, it has been a very positive experience, and we are building toolkits and practices together so that when that next happens, we're in a much stronger state of preparedness at this point.
And as someone who worked during the pandemic for the county with the health department trying to get information out to communities, I will say that they have learned a lot, and I have put other faith in the fact that they care about this community and this school district. So I will call to the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Oppose.
The item passes 4-1. Thank you, Dr. Goff.
All right, thank you.
Next is 6.1, Governing Board Expenditure Priorities for the Budget Advisory Committee for fiscal year 27.
President Extra, members of the governing board, one of the major functions of the board is to determine the specific or potential expenditure priorities that you would like to assign to your appointed committee charged with making budgetary recommendations. Budgetary Advisory Committee, we want to get that item ready to go for you so you can make those determinations at tonight's meeting. As we do have our September meeting, I think coming up in a couple of days, we want to be ready to go. So I've invited our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Hernandez, to take us through just where the committee landed last year. And as always, the administration, we always bring our ideas to the table, not to say that the board will accept them or not have any of your own, but we always like to put ours in for consideration as well. Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you. The COO is the Sun Devil. The CFO is the Wildcat.
Dun, dun.
Juve can hear me. So, yeah, sorry. So good evening, board members. So yeah, these are our recommendations to you on priorities for the budget for fiscal year 27 for the Budget Advisory Committee. Budget Advisory is actually scheduled to meet for the first time tomorrow. So it's very timely that we get these in front of you. But before we move into fiscal year 27, these were the priorities that you all approved for the BAC to discuss for fiscal year 26. So they went over summer school, specifically, looking at the academic benefit of the program, how we fund it beyond the 24-25 school year, looking at admin positions like specifically assistant principals at schools, reviewing the student fee schedules, and also looking at PE and fine arts teacher positions across the district. When the committee came to you in February, these were the recommendations that they brought forth to you. So summer school, they asked that we prioritize transitional years over other types of summer school programs, knowing that we will not have access to the same levels of funding like we did in prior years. Administrative positions, specifically around assistant principals, the recommendation was to create a comprehensive rubric to review allocations of APs across schools. Because currently under formula, we have several schools whose enrollments have fallen below formula to keep APs, but due to the kind of the complex nature of that position, the committee wanted to look at, looking at other factors, as well as having departments look at comprehensive review of potential budget cuts to help sustain some AP positions if possible. They recommended keeping the existing student fee schedule, so no changes to the fee schedule that was adopted earlier this summer, and also maintaining all existing funding levels for fine arts teachers, for PE teachers at high schools, and trying to figure out partnerships and other ways to fund those PE teachers at K-8 levels. One of those is currently embedded into the override, is PE teachers in the K-8 schools. So for fiscal year 27, we have 3 priorities that we're currently recommending. I brought my notepad in case there's more or less that you want to do. But first one is the centralization of Title I. So currently, the way that the district receives about $25 million in Title I allocations every year. We distribute about 70% of that money directly to the Title I schools. We retain about 30% centrally, most of it for mandatory set-asides. There are certain requirements that the federal law requires us to spend Title I dollars on, and those are maintained centrally. School improvement programs, private schools, family engagement, preschool, for example. And so we've seen other school districts, Mesa Public Schools specifically, who've kind of done the opposite. They use the dollars more centrally for district-wide initiatives that benefit the entire set of Title I schools or the entire district, and a smaller allocation going to the schools for kind of school-based initiatives. And so the idea is there a way for us to look at trying to follow a model to more effectively and efficiently use Title I dollars in order to fund district-wide priorities that would benefit the entire set of schools, versus kind of what we've got today, which is, essentially all but 2 schools receiving an allocation, and they each do everything differently according to their instructional improvement plan. The next one is an attendance initiative funding. So one of the things that we've obviously discussed in addition to enrollment is talking about improving attendance rates at our schools. And so currently our schools, most Title I schools, have a school committee liaison position. This tends to be kind of like your community and family engagement position at your school campuses. And then they all have an attendance tech or a registrar. I mean, these are people who, they do exactly that. They maintain attendance records, registration records for the students that enroll on those campuses. One of the functions of those attendance techs and registrars is to follow up on reports that are provided through Synergy, which is our student information system, to principals to say, here's a pattern of students who are missing multiple days, students who may already be eligible because they haven't been here for 10 days and should be dropped, looking at a variety of attendance data. What we haven't been doing is trying to deploy resources to catch those kids before it gets to a point where they have to be dropped, right? Where the school community liaison can then work with the attendance tech to say, hey, this student, student A has missed 4 consecutive days, unexcused, we haven't heard from mom or dad. The school community liaison can then engage with the family to say, hey, what's going on? Is it a transportation issue? Is it you need a uniform, connect you with the clothing bank? Do you need medical services? Something where that community liaison can be the partner for those families so that those students can then become re-engaged before it's too late. Go ahead.
Jump in here because in November, the board's going to get a more comprehensive 3-strategy approach to attendance and truancy interruption and credit deficiency prevention. But we know that there's a financial aspect to this, and our ask is at least to have budget advisory look at it, because one of our key learnings as we interfaced with other districts around the state a week ago at the truancy and absenteeism conference is the absence of school-level outreach teams personally connecting with families really exacerbates absenteeism and truancy. And so if we can look at pivoting our school community liaisons, I'm not saying that the work of organizing events is not important, it is, but actually pivoting the bulk of their work to the outreach of getting in touch with families, especially at the elementary level, to get them back into school and to really connect them to the resources that might be, or the lack of resources that might be contributing to the absenteeism. We can really look at an easy return on investment because you would just look at your attendance numbers, right? So we would connect it to that. But that's our ask, in terms of at least having budget advisory look at that.
Yeah. And as I mentioned in the other one, there is a component that the board committed to in the override to try to fund a portion of this initiative, but certainly, as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, the Budget Advisory Committee would be welcome to take a look at this a little bit deeper. And then finally, resource deployment criteria for schools. Basically a fancy way of saying how can we improve or do better in terms of how we allocate resources, be they positions or operational dollars, to schools that don't just account for student enrollment. Right now, the basis for a lot of what we do, teaching positions, school supplies, janitorial supplies, everything under the sun, seriously, is managed based on how many kids you've got on your campus. But sometimes what we're finding is that schools that are smaller compared to schools that are bigger have essentially the same types of resources as bigger schools. There's kind of questions about inequities. There's also questions around efficiency, right? Is this the most efficient way to be allocating resources around positions or deploying other resources around operations? And so are there other aspects to the funding formula that we can look at besides student enrollment as a way to deploy dollars to schools?
Yes, Dr. Trujillo.
This is a tough one, and I know people watching this right now, there's passion points around this, but we have to start looking at least the critical question of, are we deploying our resources in the most equitable way? Right now, there are aspects of our staffing and support that every school gets a position no matter what. You can be a school of 300, you can be a school of 700, and you'll get one of this particular position. But what if you have a school that demonstrates a stronger need? They have a higher percentage of ex-ed. They have a higher percentage of English language learners. They need more intensive support. Should not they receive more of that particular resource? So we do that basically throughout our staffing models. And then you also have the staffing just based off of numerics. And so we felt like it might be a good starting point to have budget advisory really start to take a look at how we staff and if we should look at more of a needs-based, develop criteria for how we deploy resources, everything from reading and math interventionists to counselors to social workers. How are we distributing those resources that isn't just tied to a specific numeric? That's been a long, controversial kind of topic here in TUSD, but I think given the financial challenges that not just TUSD but public schools are going to be facing, and where resources are going to be a little bit more finite, we're probably going to have to take this on and look at alternative staffing models. So that's why we brought this one to the table.
Yeah. So those are the three recommended priorities. Just to kind of go over the current status of the committee. So there are currently 6 vacant positions on the Budget Advisory Committee. Most recently, we had the departure of Stacy Gist, who was the principal at Valencia Middle School. As a reminder, Budget Advisory Committee members have to be affiliated with the district. There are some categories that would disqualify people, but all in all, it's pretty open-ended in terms of the affiliation with the district. The board office did receive 3 applications earlier this year. They were incomplete. They've followed up with them. They're waiting for some responses. We have had other applicants, and so this is kind of an ongoing process. I have the link on the presentation if anybody out in the community wants to click on that and look at the application. Like I said, the committee is scheduled to meet tomorrow for the first time, just mostly to do housekeeping, set up their schedule, kind of figure out like how they want to tackle this. These are 3 pretty meaty topics, and as you can see, these are the current members of the committee. You renewed several of them last fall, but we are still looking for 6 more qualified individuals to participate with the Budget Advisory Committee. So with that, I will take your questions.
Governing board members, who wants to go first? Dr. Shaw.
All right. Thank you, President Extra, and thank you for the presentation and for all the ideas. I think it's really timely to address some of these things, regardless of what happens with the override. If the override passes, as we looked at the numbers, the $45 million, it goes really quickly with how big our district is. And if the override passes, we want to make sure we're using the money in the most effective way to really address the promises that we made to our community to get it passed. Now, if the override doesn't pass, then it's going to be even more important to make sure we're utilizing those very limited resources that we have in the most effective way. So I think it's a great time to start talking about some of this resource allocation with this budget advisory committee to help ensure that with or without the override, that all the funding is going to the best way to the schools that need it, to the distributed and resources, so that the schools can really utilize it effectively.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you for your presentation. I do like all of the recommended priorities, but a couple others that I would like to suggest to see if the board is interested is see if we can get, or how much it would be for a garden at every school and composting. I know we kind of have a consultant working on the composting as of now, but I think every school deserves a garden.
Was that it, Ms. Shaw?
For now.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Romero.
So going back to talking about attendance initiative funding, talking about deploying resources, stronger synergy between school community liaisons, and taking more, as opposed to setting up events more towards, the attendance aspect of it. Do we have any type of data showing based on schools? 'Cause I know not every school has a community liaison or someone that's kind of in that role of the job that they're doing that ties into their attendance for those schools. Do we know?
Yes, Dr. Trujillo.
We don't have any school level teams that actually meet and crunch attendance data and identify trends and go and engage families. That is a first level strategy that districts utilize that are more successful in reducing absenteeism, which is why we see bullet number 2. But what exists right now is we have kind of a bare minimum, which we have an attendance tech, and those folks work very, very hard. Attendance techs are in every single school. They generate reports, and they do sort of, their charge is notifying teachers, notifying parents when their kids miss school or when there's unexcused absences, but that's it. There is no further engagement strategy beyond that. And so when you look at our lineup of school level positions, the closest that we have when you review the job description that could probably most quickly pivot towards that work is a school community liaison, because so much of getting students back to school involves parental engagement, which is a natural part of their job and actually what needs to be happening more often. So when we really did a deep dive on how we could get this first level of the absenteeism interruption infrastructure established, this is going to be a cornerstone piece. Like, so how much does it cost? What kind of return on investment do we want to, measure it against? How are we going to really show that this is going to move the ball forward? So it's just an initial cost analysis, in terms of what it's going to cost, because not every school has this position.
And then also then kind of looking at that, and I think we've already kind of had enough conversation where it's hard to talk about, we know where our enrollment's kind of has been going. We need to adjust it to attendance and absenteeism and all of these other issues that go along with it. And I know within our system we have enrollment ambassadors. Have we looked at maybe, since those are really not being effective, utilizing those to be part of this attendance initiative that are filling in those roles? And then do we see it where there's a more of a drastic need, high school versus middle school versus K6 versus K5?
So I'm glad, we're talking about absenteeism, because when you're talking about overall enrollment, it's a two-headed beast. The first head of the beast is very public and very visible. It's withdrawals. It's families that leave the district. But it's that second head of the beast that's quieter, that is more in the background. That is extreme absenteeism and truancy, where kids miss days and days and days and days, and we don't collect funding for them, but yet they remain, on the district's registration docket, and they bring your overall 40th and 100th day count. And more important than that, it's young people out of school, so it's a moral imperative to get them back in. I'm not going to surprise anybody here, but our internal data, the higher up you go past 5th grade, the more extreme the tardiness and the truancy becomes, right? So you start getting into middle school, you start getting into 9th and 10th, it levels out a little bit for upperclassmen, because at that point, you have credit accumulation, you have a focus on cleaning up credit deficiency for a lot of kids. They want to get graduated. But when you start looking at 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, that is going to be your peak of where it goes. We also are looking at it through the lens of truancy and absenteeism, interruption and prevention early for both secondary and elementary. Elementary is going to be more of a parental engagement component because we're dealing with our youngest learners, and more of a direct intervention with young people at the high schools in the middle. So it's kind of an overall view of just, where our data takes us right now.
And I guess that would be for me as far as in our recommended priorities, and maybe we look at that at a high school level versus, the middle school and the elementary. So if we don't have the funds to start it full school district-wide, focus on the areas where, it is an issue, that is a problem, would be one of my, at least, input.
Yeah, and so to tack on kind of to Dr. Trujillo's question or answer to your question about the enrollment ambassadors. So one of the things that we've shifted with enrollment ambassadors is, traditionally we've made enrollment ambassadors assigned to the regions, right? Every region has one. Now, instead of taking a look at the district, kind of vertically, we're going to take a look at it horizontally. So we're going to take a look at it exactly the way you're describing it, and take a look at grade bands, right? Put enrollment ambassadors focusing on elementary so that their focus is different than an enrollment ambassador focused on middle schools, right? Because the strategy has to look very different. My 15-year-old is tardy. It happens, right? He's a high school student. It's really hard to kind of get him out of bed. But my 6th grader, pretty quick, right? So the way that they're going to be dealt with from the enrollment ambassador perspective is going to be different for my 15-year-old than it is going to be for my 11-year-old. So we want to take a look at how we more effectively treat them at the grade band level versus at the regional level.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Shah?
One suggestion I'd love for a governing board of that is to have CTE as something that the BAC looks at. So I had a chance to be at 2 high schools this past month, at Choya and all the different programs, sports medicine, other things there, and at Sabino, and talking to the principal there about what he's trying to expand to compete against some of the surrounding districts and surrounding high schools on the east side. And with the override, there's money dedicated to CTE. So instead of making sure, I'm glad we have these initiatives, and if we have an expansion or even a contraction of CTE in the future, having the budget advisory committee look at not just what sounds like a cool program, but what has a good marketing, what we really need in our district, what are the jobs that we're trying to prepare our students for, and how we can really use our CT programs to drive enrollment and compete against some of the surrounding districts. So I would recommend CTE as one of the budget advisory committee priorities for this year, and look at just where CTE stands, and really work with Chuck on what is your systematic approach on expanding CTE if we are able to do so with the override or other sources of funding, so that we can really compete more effectively. What's going to be cost-effective expansions and how to market it best. And I wonder if the first and third pieces here could be combined. So a lot of it seems to be resource allocation, whether it's resource allocation of things we're funding through M&O or from Title I. And so I would recommend when we make a final motion that we combine the first and third here to be this resource deployment in our schools, including distribution of Title I.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw, for bringing all those things up. I agree with the, jointing of the first and third priority, and especially the CTE. One of the things that I tried to do a while back is to get, half a credit of CTE during freshman year, but I think Mr. McCollum said that freshman CTE isn't funded. And so it would be great if they could see how we can get that funded so kids can get into that program earlier.
Dr. Trujillo?
Was a principal at a time when it was still funded, and it was absolutely wonderful. Every single freshman in the system would have an exploratory CTE course. They would have a smorgasbord of all the different programs available, and it was a semester, so it would fit with health or PE. You could flip-flop it, and it dramatically increases the amount of students that go into a CTE program sophomore year. The district benefits because every time you get a program completer, you get more Perkins grant money from the federal government. Your chances of getting a student to actually complete a CTE program are dramatically increased if they start at sophomore year. If you hook them in 11th or 12th, they might take the courses for a few years, which is great, but you don't get the completer benefits, and they don't get the certification that they need for that area. So when you talk about a 9th grade course, you significantly increase the amount of students that go immediately to sophomore and take these 2 and 3, these 2-year programs by the time they walk. So I think that's another area we can do like a cost analysis. And that's also where you pick up where Dr. Shah's talking about, you get the students giving you the direct feedback about the most popular programs or the programs that they want to see replicated, because that's what that survey course does. Whether it's robotics or 3D animation or it's the automotive technology folks, it gives you a bird's eye view of where you want to expand sections. I remember having all that information available, and by the time I was, late into my principalship, the funding had already been cut, and we were kind of just operating in the dark again. So I think that might be something that Budget Advisory could look at.
Yeah, the freshmen can participate. It's just, we don't get funded for them.
Ms. Luna Rose and then Dr. Shah.
Okay, thank you. As a board liaison, we do have a meeting tomorrow, so I appreciate the conversation. I think, because Ricky and I were talking about this a little bit earlier today, these are kind of heavy topics. They're kind of meaty. So I just want to make sure we're not throwing a lot, especially since we do have lesser members right now of the BAC. And so for those who are listening, we really need some new members. You can go to our website and go to the governing board page and under board committees. But that being said, I do like the combination of Title I and resource deployment. Not sure. I mean, we could still obviously flesh that out. I do like Ms. Shaw's suggestions. I'm just not sure right now where we are. I'd kind of like to see the CTE first and then maybe somehow bring on I think the composting is great. I just want to make sure that because these are kind of a little bit heavier than some of the ones we've had in the past, that we give them equal capacity.
Right. If I may, Ms. Ekstrom, I just think the garden program is kind of low-hanging fruit, and we already have it. It's easy to replicate, and it's also something that can drive enrollment. We can push every school in TUSD has a garden, and your child will be in that garden. So, I hope the board can consider adding that as a priority.
We can have that discussion.
Dr. Shah.
I would say the gardening and composting is great. It's a really great implementation of the climate and sustainability policy. And we did hire a consultant. So in terms of Back's work, I'll maybe wait to see what the consultant says, who has done these kinds of things around the country, to see like how they would recommend implementing some of the pieces of the climate action policy, including the composting that we had included in there. And I have one other topic I'm going to propose for the Budget Advisory Committee, and that would be early childhood education and before and after school programs. We know that federal funding is drying up for a lot of these programs, before after school care. We've had some really tough conversation on this dais about tuition costs for preschool and how we're going to continue funding that. We know that we need to be more competitive with other districts when it comes to before and after school programming, so that parents can choose that and still work and do everything they need to do. I'd love for the Back to take a look at what exists, what's the landscape, on this. How do we stay competitive with other districts and charters when we offer our before and after school program? How we're going to continue to fund ECE with or without the override. I know ECE was part of that override package as well, the early childhood education. So I think that would be a great topic for the BAC to really dive into and really come back to the board with some recommendations on how to best use the funds we have available with or without the override on managing our early childhood education, as well as some of our before and after care programs for our kids.
Okay, I'm a little concerned with the centralization of Title I funds. How would that affect each school?
So what we would do is essentially the per pupil allocations would be dropped. We would still have to follow the rules, right? In other words, only schools that have a poverty rate, I guess, you could call it, of 40% and above are eligible to receive Title I dollars. So we still have to provide dollars to the schools. The idea is that we would try to focus on, are there district-wide initiatives, curriculum initiatives, family initiatives, professional development initiatives that could be better funded or more efficiently or more effectively funded if they were funded more of on a district-wide level, kind of like we do currently with curriculum service providers, right? Title I funds all the curriculum service providers in the district. That is an initiative that we rolled out as part of professional development for teachers, ties into school improvement. And so that's a kind of a better strategy to have professional development and PLCs in the schools. Are there other ways that we can replicate that type of work across the district? I mean, certainly not every school district does it that way, where the majority of the money stays central and the minority, kind of goes to schools. We've been doing it this way. I mean, we were doing it this way when I was in the district 25 years ago. So
can you give an example of what that would look like if you were to take away, if you were to flip-flop the percentages? Give me an example of what school, like Borton, what do they use their Title I funds for, and how that would affect what they use it for?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and so I'm going to use like school A because I don't want to freak out any school.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, let's say.
I know I'm wrong.
We didn't mean Borton.
I did not mean Borton.
Okay.
No.
I'm going to say, like, let's say that school A has its long-standing site-managed title budget, and they fund a library assistant, and then they fund maybe 2 TAs, and then maybe they fund what's another eligible position?
Like an interventionist.
They might fund an
Math
additional math interventionist, right? So if there is a centralization of title funds, all of that budget is absorbed, and the district, ultimately the governing board, determines, as all of those budgets go in a big pot of money, what this governing board views as district needs and where those district needs are to be deployed using title dollars. So the other side of that, the governing board could decide, we really want to lower counselor ratios, or we want to support areas, because it's an add-on, we want to support areas around the district where caseloads are excessively high. You could then use your title to aim additional counselors at those schools. You could use those additional title dollars to aim TAs at maybe early education classrooms that are already crowded. You would have that ability. So it ties back to the resource deployment conversation that we were having. But to echo, President Ekstrom brings up a very, very valid question, preparing the governing board for what the potential noise would be, right? So in a school A situation, you would probably get emails, that, hey, listen, these people have been working, they've been in these schools. That's why it's such a tough conversation. Then you layer on that Congress, I believe the cut to Title I will affect us to the tune of about 7 million.
Right.
So now your overall title dollars are getting small enough anyway where you may want to consider centralization.
Mr. Romero.
So going back with Mrs. Ekstrom, what she had mentioned on that also, on our current member list, I know Stacy's no longer there, but anybody else on there represent principals that is on our?
No, we currently don't have she was the principal representative, if you will, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my concern would be, again, like I said, if we take control out of our principals, for the money that they have, for the needs that they see, and we pull it on out, what's the repercussions that we're going to see there, and especially if there's no representation for any type of, school administration on that committee, that would be a concern of mine.
Yeah. We would still, obviously, as part of the conversations, we would still engage principals, regional assistant superintendents to kind of, the way we did it with assistant principals, right? It was kind of difficult to really kind of corral all these schools, but all 5 regionals have really good context about how APs work. I think that kind of context could work from the principals through the regionals. Obviously, the greater benefit would be to have an actual principal representative on the committee. That would be the ideal situation, but I think there are different ways to make sure that we get those concerns to the committee from that population.
Is that it?
I think so. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that since we don't have a principals out there, you want to join the BAC? Or APs, or anybody that's, in administration that would like to have a voice in making sure.
Maybe Eric Yulberg at Borton.
Yeah, there you go. And then perhaps maybe our communications team can put out some social media posts, not just for the BAC, but for all the committees that we represent.
It's just such a passion point because we know there's amazing individuals everywhere I go that are funded out of title. And that bumps up against what research-based best practices support us being able to do with title. Like, we know that early literacy is where it's at. We know that reading interventionists and math interventionists are needed in K2, K3. Title gives you an opportunity to do that. However, it butts up against, again, site-managed budgets that feature amazing people doing great things for kids. It's not an easy conversation. It's more of a where the board stands on how it wants to deploy resources conversation than anything else.
Yeah.
Dr. Shaw?
I'm not sure how the agendas are looking like, Ms. Luna Rose, but I know this might delay things, into the later winter or spring, but focusing on recruitment. I would really love to get that perspective from more principals and other people from our community. We can do some work on recruitment over the next month to get them involved on these issues.
I do think we are actually talking about that tomorrow, so, yeah. But thank you, Dr. Shaw. That should actually be a priority as well.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes, Ms. Shaw?
Does the BAC charter allow for former employees to serve?
I don't know that there's any limitation for former employees. I think as long as they meet one of these criteria and don't meet any of the disqualifying criteria. So if you have a former employee who happens to be a parent or a community member in the district, I think they fit
Right.
that.
Well, if it's keeping people out,
Yeah, the limitations on keeping people out are like really specific. Like you can't be like a business owner who does business with the district, for example, or somebody who's sued the district.
Right.
It's like very narrowly tailored. These are broader.
Okay.
They just want to have TUSD affiliation is really
Okay.
kind of the
So-
qualifier.
former employees probably.
Former
allowable.
employees could, I don't see, unless Mr. Ross.
Mr. Ross, have you
otherwise.
found anything in the bylaws?
Because if it keeps former employees out, I would recommend modifying the charter because I'm sure, former employees would have a lot more time to serve. And then just before we let this item go, I do want to pitch one more time to have my colleagues or just the committee itself look into the gardening program. I think it's really important. Although, for me, the Budget Advisory Committee is kind of where my dreams go to die. Librarians, elimination of student fees, PE at every school,
You guys-
expansion of fine
she's
arts.
really gonna make you feel
Maybe it's
bad.
better it doesn't wind up on that committee.
Kind of like Borton.
But I think it would be promising if we had that. It could boost enrollment. It could be something we can brag about. So please do consider it.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Was there anything, Mr. Ross? You were staring at me.
So the charter states that Community members of the BAC must be affiliated with TUSD, including parents/guardians of TUSD students, TUSD employees, representatives of the Tohono O'odham Nation, representatives of the Pasco Yaqui tribe, owners of businesses within TUSD's boundaries, or community members residing within TUSD. So that's pretty, that last one's pretty broad.
Thank you.
So do you want a motion?
I've written some of them down. Let me know what you want to do. I know Ms. Shaw has a very...
Well, I'll move to add gardens at every school and composting as a priority.
I'll second, since I'm closest to you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Yay. Thank you. And do we have to move the entire item still?
Yeah, Dr. Shaw.
So I'll move I'll move to combine the first and third as a resource deployment topic, and then adding the CTE and then early childhood education before after care as 2 additional items.
Second.
The item has been moved by Dr. Shaw and seconded by Ms. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Pray for me. Pray for us.
Next is item 6.2, the adoption of the TUSD district calendar for school year 26-27 and 27-28. I can't believe I'm saying that. So,
Yeah, I'd like to
Dr.
welcome
Trio.
our calendar team, Dr. Flory Hewitt, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum Instruction, our Senior Director for Curriculum. And we're here for board consideration for the school calendar for the next couple of years. So I want to turn it over to our team.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Good evening, governing board members, President Ekstrom, legal counsel. It is hard to think that 2028, my goodness, oh my gosh. All right, so our goal is to obtain your approval for the 2026 and 2027 and 27-28 school years for our district. I am going to introduce this item by discussing that we did have a calendar committee that met from the months of October through March this past year. And one of our priorities with that committee was to ensure that our calendar aligns with our educational priorities. Also, maximizing our instructional days was pivotal as we discussed the planning for this, planning for professional development and accommodating testing schedules as well as operation schedules and so forth. We had representation from families, we had some teachers, school administrators, financial services, human resources, curriculum and instruction, and operations and transportation. And I believe Mr. Abel Romero was also part of a couple of our meetings during our committee meetings for our calendar. To walk us through the process and the options, I'm going to invite Ms. Heidi Aranda to talk about the options that we presented to our families and then some of the survey results.
Good evening, board members. So our calendar committee really considered several factors, keeping those goals in mind that Dr. Hewitt shared. They considered starting and end dates of the school year, breaks, and also professional development. And so you will see here, these are some of the options that the committee came up with based on prior feedback. We did have some feedback in the past about some way to extend Thanksgiving break. And so we tried that out. We always do consider providing the option for the traditional calendar that people are used to. So that you'll see in calendar A, which is beginning, the first week in August, having the regular Thanksgiving, the last day before Memorial Day, and the 4 professional learning days, 1 each quarter. The next 2 examples added that extra day for Thanksgiving break. So Thanksgiving break would be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The difference between B and C is that the start dates, C ended up, was an early start on August 3rd, and calendar B had a start date of August 10th. The last day for calendar B is the Thursday before Memorial Day, and in calendar C, that would end a week prior to Memorial Day. Both B and C have the structure of 2 professional learning days before students begin the school year, but they would be in the beginning contract days of teachers and the 2 additional PLD days during the school year. We put those calendars and the sample calendars together and presented those to the community through a survey, and this was the results. We had over 1,000 people respond to the survey. You can see it is a good combination of parents and family members, teachers and staff and administration, as well as students. Oops, I skipped. Wow, I skipped a lot. Okay, so as their first choice, you can see they overwhelmingly selected calendar B as their preference. And for their first choice as well as their second choice. So with that in mind, our recommendation, based on their feedback and input from the community, is that the board approves calendar B with a traditional start but extended Thanksgiving break to be adopted for 26, 27, and 27, 28. This is what those calendars look like. And they're also attached in the board agenda item. And with that, I will take your questions.
Questions, Dr. Shaw, Ms. Shaw, after the, Ms. Shaw.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. One thing I heard about this current year is that, we started on a Monday instead of Thursday. Was there any feedback about how that was for staff or students?
It was a long week.
Yeah.
As starting on a Monday does kind of require that shift. We did try to come up with that option with that extended Thanksgiving and also starting the professional learning days before. It just didn't work. But yeah, it does make for a long first week of school, I think.
Yeah. Okay, well, I like option B because, it gives us more time to fix the schools, and
yes,
I like that Thanksgiving break as well, so I support option B.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you. A couple of questions. So with that extension of Thanksgiving, like if we started on the Thursday before instead of the Monday, couldn't we have the whole week of Thanksgiving off?
So one of the things that we run into are contract days. So we had to very creatively, even pushing professional learning days out of the school days and into the beginning. We had to make adjustments based on employee contracts. So, and the instructional minutes, of course. So that would add
number of
2
contract days, though, right?
I
It would
think
still
that
be the
would
same number of contract days, so that would be days off Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, and it'll be extra days on Thursday and Friday before that Monday start.
So starting with teachers the Thursday prior.
That we have done in the previous years, yeah.
So that would extend, I think, contract days by 2 days.
We would have the 2 extra days of the week of Thanksgiving off.
Right, but I think they're in contract days, even though they're like a paid holiday, essentially, but still part of their contract. Right. We'd have to explore that with human resources.
And my second question, I know when we were talking about a lot of the different benefit additions that we negotiated with TEA, a lot of them were tied to attendance of professional learning days for our teachers. And then we had talked about then moving the professional learning days to Fridays because we were less worried about attendance issues for those. And I still see that they're on Wednesdays. Why didn't we move them to the Fridays and let the parents at least have the 3-day weekend instead of having to take a random day off in the middle of the week?
Well, there's no really other way to say this, but when we interface with other districts and I talk with other districts about offering professional development on Fridays and Mondays, we exacerbate student absenteeism. That goes on in every system that I've interfaced with, where they're offering these kinds of days on a Friday or a Monday. Now, that may not be the case with a lot of the families watching, but there are notable spikes. And in a time when we're trying to talk about mitigating excessive absenteeism, I would have concerns about putting these types of days on a Friday or a Monday. I understand the benefit for, families, to be able to have that extra day and how that might make childcare easier in a lot of instances, but my fear is I think it would exacerbate a lot of absenteeism. I don't worry so much about staff. I do think that, if we set expectations the right way, I'm okay from a staff point of view. Our staff are professionals. They understand the importance of professional development. My concern is for the 39,000 students at large, giving a Monday and giving a Friday like that.
Can you explain more what do you mean by that? Why would it be more absenteeism on a Friday PLD versus a Wednesday PLD?
I think if you have a Friday PLD and you're leaving the door open for students to have that day off, we're leaving a door open for a 4-day weekend on Monday, and you're leaving the door open for a potential 4-day weekend on the Thursday before the Friday that they're off. That to me would be my concern, versus having it in the middle of the day or having it on a Wednesday or even on a Tuesday. You reduce the temptation to sleep in that Monday and make it a 4-day weekend, or have families view it as a bridge to a 4-day weekend and make travel plans and all those other types of things. So that would be my primary concern.
Is that met off in the data in terms of do we see a lot more absenteeism on the Friday before Labor Day or other
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's something we can even bring in data from surrounding school districts. That's not a phenomenon that's unique to TUSD. That actually topic that came up at our attendance conference, that when you look at your own policies and practices, you kind of start with, okay, what are we doing that's potentially exacerbating or creating opportunities for absenteeism? We have to look when we're scheduling these types of days. So I just thought I'd bring that to the table. We'd happily bring data, to kind of support that and talk about what that looks like across all of our schools after a Labor Day or after, an MLK Day or before an MLK Day, what both student absenteeism looks like and what staff absenteeism looks like.
The other factor to consider is Fridays have more instructional minutes in them because they're a regular school day, whereas Wednesdays has a reduced amount of instructional minutes. And I think the other piece that we've done to kind of help those attendance issues is by pushing those 2 days before school starts. It's 2 less days that we're interrupting instruction.
Mr. Romero.
So, and I was on a couple of those meetings as mentioned, and kind of as we've gone through this, what I know now that I didn't know then kind of comes to mind over here. And because of that, I'm looking at calendar D, which hasn't been discussed here. And I just want to throw this out there, just because I know this year, with especially our early start, and I'm sure every board member up here has been getting multiple air conditioning complaints and outages and things of that nature that we have at our school. And I see that we start early. And from what I understand through facilities, the cost to have our schools running in these early part of August versus if we started later and ended later, was there a cost difference for keeping our buildings open if we started at Labor Day? Is that possible? Or are we always just stuck with these type of days? Again, like I said, we're still getting AC issues from people, parents, teachers, principals, et cetera, and yes, we're still in September, but if we eliminated a few other ones in those earlier weeks, is that a potential to look at in the future, or is that even a consideration?
We're really air conditioning in May, June as well. If we ended the school year later into June, that's even the hotter time than.
Well, from what I understand, August is a hotter month than the end of May and early June if we extended it over to that area. Yeah, I'm sure graduations might be a little bit more, difficult on that one. I'm just wondering, I like B as far as because we're starting later, we're getting our facilities more time to do those things. I'm just looking, again, like I said, looking outside of something different. Is it possible to do a 17th or a little bit later, that third week? Again, I don't, a lot of work has been done here, and I don't want to take away from that work. I just want to open up the door of the conversation. Is that a possibility? And if that's a possibility, do we have to do 2 years in a row? Can we pass this first year under calendar B and look at a calendar D as another option? Again, I'm throwing things out there. I don't know, again, like if Ricky would have information on those things or any feedback Dr. Trujillo would have on those things. Again, still being new into this, I'm just looking at other options.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the most important thing is instructional days and minutes and so forth. But yeah, I don't know about the data from facilities about how many ACs break in, June or May compared to August.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes. Dr. Trujillo, so I would imagine that if we hypothetically looked into Mr. Romero's suggestion of starting later, like after a Labor Day, like we used to do a billion years ago, it would probably mess up a lot of our, like with the AIA.
Sure.
And all of those type of.
Yeah, we certainly look at that, and I'm like, I was on calendar E, F, and G. I was trying to break a bunch of China. I was challenging to innovate and like, hey, we need to be thinking like, we got to increase instructional time. And they just weren't having it. So I'm fairly quiet on this issue. I understand that we're looking at more traditional models, but I've always tried to look at creating a longer runway for operations. I've said that before. I don't think that we give them enough time, which is why we don't finish all of our preventative maintenance on HVAC, and it comes back and it gets us when we start so early. You're always going to be running school in June because you have summer school. So that's not going away. Like that, you're going to have to do school in June. The question is, do you want school to go longer in May so you can forego August? And that's where you're looking at where are the temperatures hotter. Typically they're hotter in August than they are in May. June and July, June, you're always going to run school. It's always going to be hot. You got to deal with summer school wherever it is that we have it. It's a question of, from a monetary basis, how much are we spending, in dealing with cooling issues in May versus what we're doing in August. We also have to look at like AIA calendar, like you said, Mrs. Luna Rose, like how much is that set off, fall sports, if we're looking at moving and going a little bit later in May so that we can start as close to Labor Day as possible or even after. So I think that's kind of as far as we could probably go with that, because then you get into like minutes and fall break, and we still want to honor what the recommendations were with the Thanksgiving and all that other kind of stuff.
I do know there is a little bit of a sense of urgency as open enrollment opens in November. The Synergy team needs to build that system and needs a calendar to plug into that system. So I know they would prefer to have an approved calendar at the latest by end of September, beginning August.
Yeah, and I don't want to kind of disrupt what the work that you guys have done. And I know you guys got on a lot of those meetings. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to all of those. And there was a lot of collaboration. There was a lot of conversation, a lot of things happening in those conversations that I heard. You guys did your homework. You did a lot of these things. But like I mentioned, just kind of looking at different things that I'm seeing in a different view, I'm good with this, with Calendar B, supporting that. But maybe for this 26, 27, 27, 28. But when we revisit this, I would like to maybe have that calendar D when we look at it as at a later start time and having that later time to see how that might work with all the different programs. Again, you guys have done so much work, and I respect that. So I'm not trying to take off the train. I just want to look at it from a different point of view and a different perspective. So
And
again,
I think it's a great time to start looking at those innovative sort of solutions. I know Dr. Trujillo just mentioned he wanted us to explore more innovative options, but with time, right? So looking at 28, 29, is that the next one? And starting that work, presenting those ideas to the community to be able to really explore, especially ones that do require significant change. It'd be good to look at all the systems, like Ms. Luna Rose mentioned about sports and, other areas that might be affected.
And then maybe, because like I said, on the ones that have done, B was, number one, C and A were kind of right over similar as far as that goes, but maybe if one of the ones that didn't work well, we eliminate one of those styles, and then, but like I said, then D, now you have four-way that it's going to be separated on out. So like I said, I'm good with supporting what we have here today. I would just like at least we put that out there that we look at an option D for the future. But again, I am supportive of the work you guys have done.
Dr. Shaw, and then Ms. Luna Rose.
I see that there's a 10-day discrepancy between first, second semester. Has it always been like that? And what does that mean in terms of like classes that are taught in both semesters having 10 days longer in one semester compared to the other?
Yeah, it's all about where the calendar lies. This is why we push those 2 days into the spring semester, because that would make our fall really short. So we try to accommodate to try and even that out, but it didn't work out to exactly, half and half semesters.
Is that how it's always been? Have we always had a longer second semester than the first semester the last couple of years?
No.
And what does that mean in terms of our classes and curriculum and,
So-
students are taking something one semester versus another?
So we adjust our curriculum. We develop our curriculum in quarters. So however many days each quarter is, we adjust our curriculum to fit that and our pacing guides and so forth to give teachers our assessments as well. But we do try to keep it towards that 90 days each semester, more or less. But yeah, depending on how the calendar falls, it's not always possible.
Dr. Trujillo?
Is it the presence of the number of governing board holidays that falls in one semester versus another that creates the overage? So is it that, because I think it's a great question, I think it's important to understand it, is it that because we've got the fall break and the winter break, and then we've got, Labor Day, and I think we've got, what's the other one that comes to mind?
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day.
Yeah.
That means that the number of actual teaching days is reduced, and we've got to make them up in the spring. Is that what creates that gap? I think it's important to kind of clarify that. Are we
So-
adding days on for that reason?
So for example, we heard it loud and clear, like we don't want to start school in July. That was very clear from the feedback to the committee. We need to start as late as possible. So starting August 10th, right, there you're eliminating 5 days right there. And like you said, there's holidays within the first semester. And then just where winter break falls, it can affect that. So we try and keep as close as we can to 90-day semesters, about 45 days a quarter, but it just doesn't always work that way. But we do count backwards. So when we say we're going to end by Memorial Day, then we go back and how many, we need 176 instructional days. We plug in that fall break, spring break, and try to even them out as much as possible.
Ms. Luna Rose, did you have another comment?
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate Mr. Romero bringing that up, just because, and maybe whether I'm continuing on this board or not at that time, I think, there are parents that, I know that like East Coast and California schools, they don't start until the day after Labor Day. And so I think it might be worth reviewing, just because but we're kind of in a situation where we're always hot, so
Yeah.
I don't know what will be, but I think it's worth, I just want to say, I think it's worth reviewing for future dates.
And giving the opportunity for community to give feedback.
Yes, Dr. Shaw?
I think for tonight's purposes, I'd probably only feel comfortable approving the 26-27 calendar and keep on working on and kind of seeing how that goes, how this year's goes and everything, and not approve the 2 years. I think what we need to really do is make sure everything's ready for the next school year. And I think keep on having conversations on what makes sense.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Shaw on just approving this upcoming calendar. Thank you, Mr. Romero, for bringing that up. I think it would be great to do that so we give facilities time to fix our schools so we don't run into the problem that we do every school year. But it would be great to get all the other school districts on board and extending their calendar so that we don't, put our athletes at risk. And I don't know who our board liaison is for ASBA, but having the whole state on board to start later would be great, so that we're all on the same page, since this was something that we used to do in the past, start late. But I don't know when we started to start early, but yeah, it does create issues in our district and probably others.
And I'll just say, not all the hate emails can come my way, but I would like a year-round calendar. That's what I would support. I like how Vail does it, to be honest, where they have the longer fall break, the longer spring break, more breaks built in, less of a long summertime. I think there's a lot of evidence based about learning loss over the summer, and so that's what I would push for. Not as a motion tonight, but just want to throw it out there and let the hate mail come my way.
That's the kind of China that I was trying to get them to break, but.
We did
I'm
talk
with it.
about it, but.
Along with uniforms. You can get that, get the uniforms in.
Shucks, added that to BAC.
We kind of just brushed over the Monday start date, so everybody was okay with that for this year, or for this upcoming school year? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the survey kind of communicated that now that they've lived that, right? We've done that in the past, but now that they've relived that again, that might change. So that might be one of the options presented again in the future.
Okay.
I'm sorry, when was the survey done? This was done before the school year started?
Yes. So we did present, like you can see, the traditional, which starts on a Thursday, and then the other two options that start on a Monday. But again, that could be presented again, a Thursday start date.
Yeah, maybe they wanted an August 6th start date, and then they wanted an extended Thanksgiving break, and that didn't have the option. So, because I have heard from parents that they did hate it. Now my daughter's in the 5th grade, and so, I mean, it was okay for her, but, for the younger ones, I don't know how that affected.
The Monday start
Yeah, the Monday start date for kinders or first graders.
Right.
Yeah. I have a high schooler, so she just complained, so it doesn't matter. I'm calling her out.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes.
I wonder if we can present the calendar publicly, like recommendation of calendar B, because, oftentimes the survey is just it is a small portion of people. And if people saw, and maybe we explicitly state that we are going to, or we may start again on a Monday, please provide your feedback on this calendar recommendation, and then bring it back at the next board meeting, just so people can know, or at least they can't say, we didn't know, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, I got a lot of grief for the Monday start.
I did too, so that's why I'm just bringing it up. And it may be because I'm at an elementary school and people see me and they're like, that sucked or whatever, but yeah.
I'm not sure that would give us a lot. We have 1,000 responses here. I'm not sure having 5 responses is really going to change too much in terms of the 1,000 that we have on here. We hardly ever, we put everything out to public when we get more than a handful of comments on anything.
Right, but we put it out before the first day of school, right? It closed before school started, and so the ramifications of the Monday start wasn't realized. And you said November is the time where you really need it for enrollment?
She needs to build it in October, so end of September, the latest beginning of October.
Mr. Romero.
So you're going back to that Monday start date, and I think, and I got a little bit, but after visiting some of the schools, I don't think it was as bad as most people thought. I think it was in the initial, it's something different than we used to have, so it's change. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things that I saw on my end, talking to some of those people, was the change aspect of it. And then kind of talk, you know, a lot of a dialogue that we've been having up over here, which is great. And I am supportive, like I said, because I know we have to have something done. And in approving this next year coming on up, but Dr. Shaw also makes a good point in option E, you know, to have that out there as a full school year thing too. And if that's possible, I'd like to make the option at least to move this to approve for next school year 26, 27, and then come back to look at least A, B, C, D, and E.
So that's your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second? I'll second it for discussion.
Is it too late to add the calendar to the Budget Advisory Committee?
No, we already have too many things.
I think I'm good with that.
Any
Let's
other,
approve next year, and let's keep on working on this.
any other discussion? Ms. Shaw?
Gosh, I don't, it was so difficult this school year. I wonder if, like, we can just table it for until the next meeting or the meeting after that, so that we can float the Thursday start day, so it's not so difficult for everybody to lead up to, like, have the full week. It's just rough.
Yes, Ms. Linaros.
I'm going to be the old fuddy-duddy here. I was okay with the Monday start date, and I'm still okay with the Monday start date. Everybody works Monday through Friday, so, you know, it's the way of the world. Yes, I did get comments too, but I think once they got through the week, they were okay. So I'm okay with keeping it on Monday.
So calendar A has a Thursday start date, but then the PLD days are during the school year. So can you explain to me a little bit more about this contracted days and how this works and where the limitations are? Or can someone explain that to me? Because it seems like if we started on Thursday, those 2 days were pushed into the school year, which I probably wouldn't favor that. Like, this, it's really disruptive to have those Wednesdays off for families. I hear like negative comments about that a lot from families. Like, I know, another Wednesday off, I got to figure out what I'm doing with the kids.
So traditionally, the way the employee work calendar goes, and I don't know if John is in here, but people have different traditional start dates and end dates. So for example, teacher assistants, they might traditionally start on the first day of school, right? So when we start a week earlier than the first day of school, as in this year, started a week earlier, we had to bring them in prior to students starting too, so that we wouldn't compromise their contract days. Many of our work calendars had to be adjusted in order to accommodate those days prior. So they have a certain number of work days. When we took out the PL, professional learning days, out of the school year, that was 2 less days during the year that they had to work. So we had to add those 2 contractual days to the beginning prior to students coming.
So we added 2 more days at the beginning of the school year. Couldn't we finish the school year on the Wednesday before Memorial Day, and that would even it out? And then
Well, we had
add-
to add
that would-
days to complete their contract.
That would even out the semesters a little bit too.
I'm not quite sure I understand that part.
So if we did the Thursday start, kept the PLD days before the Thursday start, so we're not adding those 2 PLD days back into the school year, and then finish the school year a little bit earlier in May by 2 days, that would still have the same contractual days and still have all the total number of days, keep the Thursday start and a little bit early into the school year, and even out the semesters a little bit as well.
I would have to go to the drawing board. I'm happy to explore that.
Ms. Shaw?
Ms. Ekstrom, thank you. I think we really need to do a Thursday start date because one, if there's an issue with the AC, like we have the weekend fix it or call an emergency contractor to get this fixed, and having it start on Monday, there's always going to be issues, and it's much more difficult to address it in the middle of a calendar week.
Mr. Romero, what was your motion again? Please.
So I was just wanting to motion just to pass this upcoming school year calendar with the caveat that we bring this back for the following year to give at least an option with basically an A, B, C, D, E, something with a later start in the year and something with Dr. Shaw had mentioned, a full year type of schedule.
And to address Ms. Shaw's concern, they will be in the school that week, right? So if something does happen with the AC, people are in the building.
The week before students start?
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that could be, I don't know.
It's not going to help, but we need more time to fix our schools up. And you see the issues when everybody's there and the room's 95 degrees.
Yeah.
So if we don't pass this tonight, like what are we recommending? Like who's making decisions? Like where are we going from here? Like, what are we recommending that our administrative team do then?
Find a calendar that starts on a Thursday is what my recommendation would be.
Dr. Trujillo?
So we're back here in a week. I don't think that the tweaks that I followed the tweaks. I think I can walk you through. I mean, I think they're reasonable tweaks that we can make that still balance out the contract days, allow us to start on a Thursday, let us get out a little bit, earlier for the Memorial Day. We can adjust those tweaks, be back here in a week and see what the board's will is. I do think conceptually, I think it's a good thing to just focus on 26, 27. I personally want to see more China broken before committing to 27, 28. I want to really look at, challenge the committee to really look at research and, what the increase in frequency to classroom instruction means, for kids. So I think 26, 27 is on the table. I don't think it's too much to ask to be back here in a week. I think the adjustments that we heard here could be very, very small to get us to that Thursday that I think we're all kind of talking about. I do agree that it does give us a little bit of that extra 48-hour runway when a school goes down, especially if we're dealing with a monsoon. The worst thing to happen is a monsoon over the weekend and school starts on Monday. We've been in that situation before. That's not fun. Takes the air out. We got people out there 3, 4 o'clock in the morning trying to get the chillers up. So there's a lot of sense in operationally why we would want to go on a Thursday. So I think we can maybe take a look at that and, see if we can be back here in a week. I'm not sure we'd have to convene everybody. I think we have enough feedback. We're not changing anything conceptually other than just maybe moving the start from Monday to the Thursday and then backing up a little bit and getting out a little bit earlier for 26, 27.
But do we want to keep calendar B with a Thursday start and a Wednesday before Memorial Day out with an extended Thanksgiving break? And then the PLD is staying the same?
If possible.
Okay. So
The only consequence that I can see is you push back then to the third week in July, you push back new teacher induction, all of those things, the principal welcome back, things like that, to July 20th, 21st.
I think we need to look at that calendar. I don't see where that happens. I think we're going to have to walk through that because we're only talking about a couple of days. So I think looking at that in a more detailed way, and then we'll be back. But it is essentially calendar B, trying to get to that Thursday. With regard to the PLD days, taking two of them out of the academic year, I think eases like the childcare burden. So I think we're almost there, but we'll sit down and I want to see where that takes us back into July.
Okay, so in order for them to come back, there's a motion and a second on the table to approve the calendar as presented tonight. So if you want them to come back, you vote it down.
So can I retract that, or do we just vote it
We
down?
have to
Okay,
vote.
Yours was
perfect.
seconded, so it's not yours, it's the board's motion now.
So all of those, let's do a roll call vote.
Dr. Ravi?
No.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
No.
Mr. Romero?
No.
Ms. Ekstrom?
No, motion fails. So you'll be back next week. Thank you so much.
Okay. Say real quick, I
Yes.
encourage the audience, you know, after this gets posted on Friday, to take a look at it. Hopefully we can pass something next week, but we would love the feedback, I think. If you send us emails or, just send us emails and let us know what you think.
Next item is future meeting dates and agenda items. Dr. Trujillo.
We will be back with a calendar next week, and then our lobbyists will be in town to give you their legislative wrap-up, and then get the board discussing what it might look at for some legislative priorities to focus on for the upcoming session.
Anything else from the governing board members? If not, the meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.